Fund Supermart, your online gateway to unit trusts.
Thank you, Terence, for sharing your insights on the opportunities in the fixed income space. So coming up next, we have Mr. K Selvan. He's the Director of Multi-Asset Strategies at Lion Global Investors. His topic today is the age of disruption. And let's put our hands together to welcome Selvan on stage.
It's very good to see all of you on a nice Saturday morning. It's a very interesting topic, but before we begin, let's just get acquainted with the word disruption. So I'm thinking most of you know the word disruption, some not. Well, some of you must be reading about this. It's all over the news. Maybe let me just describe to you what disruption is. You get disrupted by your train services. That's one. For those who don't take trains and are smiling, oh, well, I drive, I don't take a train. You probably got disrupted by the broadband network failing a few weekends ago. Well, I was on a whole Saturday without a broadband. But those are temporary disruptions, right? What I described to you, you probably had to adjust and adapt, probably call an Uber driver when the train is down, use your Wi-Fi or use your mobile data plans when your network is down. But what we're here to talk about is permanent disruption, something which is here to stay. It is going to change the way we work, play, and live. It's going to cause some opportunities. It's going to cause some damage. And we will explore more, right? But it is a bit scary, but it is also very exciting. Okay, so we will just explore the topic as we go along. But before we go in, what is disruption and what are disruptors? So there's this thing called disruptors. I'm not sure whether you Google, you get the word, because it's not an English word, I'm not sure. But we think that disruptors are companies which are changing the way business models are built, disrupting incumbents, disrupting established companies, industries, in very different, effective, smart ways. The Wall Street Journal describes disruption as the fourth industrial revolution. The founder and CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, quote unquote, he says, if you're going to invent, you're probably going to disrupt. So you can kind of equate disruption with invention, but we will explore the topic as we go further. Well, disruption is in the news, right? So for those who watched your National Day rally speech last year, 2016, our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong actually did mention the word disruption, and he did highlight it as one of the defining challenges facing the Singapore economy, right? So it's not a joke at all. He actually said Uber and Grab are disrupting the taxi market, but he also said that, well, it is making lives very convenient, and it's going to be very easy for people to hail a ride, right? But he also went on to talk about disruption in the retail industry, how the online retail is actually putting a lot of pressure on retail malls. He highlighted Amazon, he highlighted Taobao as two kind of offshore sites where people go and have a whole lot of product offerings and a lot of cheaper offerings, right? He said that the Orchard Road malls are suffering, and he cleverly said, oh, well, nowadays people go to shopping malls, they go, they look, they see, they go home and buy. But disruption is not a new phenomenon. Disruption has been there. For those, well, I didn't live in the horse carriage era, but horse carriages were the main form of transportation in the 18th and the 19th centuries. While the horse carriages played a very good role in the transportation, there was something happening behind the scenes. There was technological advancements happening in internal combustion engine. And today we call it cars, right? But by the turn of the 19th century, we started to see advancements in internal combustion engines, and we saw the advent of automobiles. To give you some numbers, right? In the year 1900, about 4,000 cars were sold in the US. Just a decade later, 400,000 cars were sold. Fast forward, horses disappeared. Traffic systems were found. traffic laws were developed. So things moved, right? But think about it. If you're in the 1850s, you probably say cars, too dangerous, right? Horses play a very good role. Why do we need cars, right? But things moved forward. And just to put the 400,000 in perspective, today, 80 million cars are sold every year in the world. Typewriters also disappeared, right? Thanks to word processing, thanks to personal computing, typewriters disappeared completely. When I was a little boy, I remember my auntie going for typewriting classes in the evening. Okay, I can see some nods over here. But think about what happened to that skill set. That skill set was redundant completely when word processing and PCs came. The music world also evolved from analog to digital. And when that happened, Sony Walkman gave way to the Apple iPod and other digital music players. I think even Creative was there at some stage. Kodak was a very big company. At the height of its history, it was hiring 140,000 employees. It controlled almost 85% of the photo paper market worldwide. Kodak went bankrupt in 2012. And thanks to the high-resolution lenses, digital cameras, no more people take photos and develop. But what is disruptive innovation? Or and why is disruption happening only now? We put it in 3 boxes so that it's easy for people to understand, but please don't look at it as 3 boxes, okay? There's a confluence of things happening. But the first major message we want to tell you is the biggest invention in this century is the internet, right? But we're not just talking about internet. We're talking about 4G, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cloud computing. A whole lot of things happening. And if you look on the hardware side, battery cost is coming down so fast, electric vehicles are going to become a reality. Computing speeds are so fast, you will have super fast computers in your self-driving cars. Drones are happening. And for those who are taking drone pilot license, don't bother. Drones are going to fly by themselves, right? So they're going to have Qualcomm chips on drones, and drones are going to be self-piloting, right? So you can do it for hobby, but don't think that you're going to craft a new career out of drone piloting. Artificial intelligence had a big breakthrough this year, right? Or last year, sorry. And there's so many things which are happening, and it is just going to change the way we are doing things. But what does it really mean, right? Let me just give you an example. Think about buying movie tickets. 5 years ago, it was not possible to buy a movie ticket with your mobile phone because GPRS and 3G was super slow, right? But with the 4G, you could actually buy movie tickets online, and you will never go back to a box office and queue again for a movie ticket, right? But it's more than that. With 4G, you could actually watch YouTube on MRT stations or MRT trains. You could have Facebook on your mobile phone, Tinder, whatever, right? So everything came to your hands during the 4G era. But think about what happens when 5G happens, and 5G is coming soon. Maybe not in Singapore so soon, but it's already happening in the US, right? 5G is going to make your phones 10 to 20 times faster. And what does that mean, right? It means you can probably download one full HD Nicolas Cage movie in less than a minute. But it's not about downloading movies. When 5G happens, virtual reality goggles are going to take off in a very big way. Today, what you see in the virtual goggles or VR goggles is just version 1.0. It is not the real thing. The real thing is you will get immersed in the virtual world. You'll be sitting front row watching Andy Lau's concert. Or you'll be in Anfield watching Liverpool versus Arsenal. And that's what VR is all about. So what you see in the VR is just the first sampling that you're seeing. But when 5G takes off, everybody in the MRT will be wearing VR goggles. So even if you faint in front of them, they wouldn't know because they are in a virtual world. Now, we're not just talking about humans to gadgets or humans to apps. We're also talking about machine-to-machine interaction. Well, I think the geeks call it Internet of Things. So what we're talking about is it is just not you and a mobile phone or you and a smartwatch. But between that, a whole lot of machine-to-machines are talking before it comes to you. Let me just give you an example, right? Imagine your car is connected to your insurance company. And what will happen in that era, right? So basically, when you are driving your car, you're basically the car is going to send daily mileage, driving patterns, how many trips you make in a year, in a day, right? How fast are you driving? Are you keeping to road speed limits, right? And in future, in the cars will never even let you drive if you've got alcohol breath, right? But basically what I'm trying to tell you is the cars are going to be connected to your insurance companies. Your insurance companies can then do a risk profiling of you as a driver. Are you a safe driver? Are you a driver who drives 6 trips a day? Basically, the message is that the insurance premiums will have to be priced fairly, right? If I'm driving to work 10 minutes, park my car for 10 hours, and then drive back 10 minutes, I'm only making 2 trips. Why should I pay $100 a month for insurance? Compared to a guy who's sending his grandmother, his dog, and everything else, 6 trips, right? He should be paying more than me. So basically, that's what connectivity means, right? The car is talking to the insurance company, but we don't know. It's happening machine to machine. Let me just give you another example. Your refrigerator is fitted with sensors and actuators. It's tracking your groceries. It's tracking your eggs coming down, your milk, your cheese, your yogurt, your fruits, whatever. It comes up with an automatic online groceries list. It sends it to Amazon Fresh. 3 days later, you see a box of groceries just outside your door. That's what connectivity is all about, right? And for those who don't know, Amazon is coming to Singapore this year. Our lives are going to change, right? A lot of things are going to get disrupted. Let's see. But this is what's happening in the US, right? And what is Amazon doing to Walmart? Walmart is a big giant, right? And it took so many years for Amazon to come and finally chip the business of Walmart away, right? So you can see the growth is completely different. But what this also means is Walmart in the US is closing stores. They're laying off people. And same story for Macy's or Sears. And in Australia, Woolworths, you also see the same thing. Closing stores, laying off people. Business models are changing. And when we're talking about groceries earlier on, the grocery market is the only market which has not been disrupted yet. Now you can understand why Lazada bought RedMart.com last year. And Amazon Fresh is coming to Singapore. It's completely different. Now, how many of you watch Netflix? I don't see many young ladies here, so I know a lot of young ladies or millennials watch Netflix. But basically what's happening in the US is the cable TV operators are feeling the pain. Now, how many of us pay, or how many of us are sick and tired of paying $50, $60, $70 a month for cable TV, right? And why do we need 30 channels? And how many hours of TV can we really watch? In the US, Netflix, Hulu, and those kind of guys are actually customizing and giving to you what you want. So the new world, especially driven by millennials, is that don't give it to me like that. I'm picking and choosing what I want. Same for advertisement, same for cable TV, same for contents, right? Now, this is very interesting. Have you ever wondered what happens in 1 internet minute? But anyway, this is an old chart, okay? This was done in February 2016, so we are almost close to 1 year already. But it's just to put things in perspective. In 60 seconds, what really happens in the internet? Well, about 21 million WhatsApp messages get sent in 1 minute. About 3 million YouTube videos get viewed. 2.5 million Google searches. In Amazon, almost 200,000 of sales in a minute. It's amazing, right? And I think people know this story quite well, right? The social media, e-commerce story very well. But what people don't know is the data analytics and the big data and that artificial intelligence which happens behind the scenes. For those who use Facebook, have you ever wondered how come you can get a suggested post which so closely matches what you're looking for? It's because Facebook knows who you are. Facebook knows who your friends are. Facebook exactly knows what kind of profile are you. Are you a white-collar worker? Do you wear leather shoes? Are you a gym-going person? Are you playing golf? Are you a drinker? Facebook knows everything, right? And we have not even come to the stage of artificial intelligence yet, and it's just starting to happen. But in the future, Facebook will be able to recognize you as a face. The face recognition is artificial intelligence, and it's just starting to happen, right? But the point we want to make with here is there's so much of data analytics going on. And every time you like something on Facebook, or you post something on Instagram, or you choose a concert movie tickets, there is data. And the data is being analyzed to predict customer behavior, make pricing better, make better products, and push to you what they think that will work. So those are the days where you put a billboard on SBS bars or put a Straits Times full ad page, hoping that 1 million people will see, but so what if they see? They will not buy. But in the new era where Facebook or Google or Instagram is, people, or rather the systems or the apps, know what you want, and there's a very high chance you will click and you buy. Now, the electric vehicle story is a very interesting story, but let me just go back in time. Do you remember the first mobile phone, which was like this, right? Like a brick, also weighing like a brick. But lithium-ion batteries have actually brought the size of batteries a lot smaller, and today you have a very nice small laptop or a mobile phone, thanks to the miniaturization, thanks to lithium-ion batteries. But what's going to happen now is the batteries are now moving from your phones and your notebook PCs to your cars, to your homes, to office buildings. Because the cost of batteries are coming down so fast, and actually GM and Tesla are putting so much of investments into battery plants, and they are bringing the cost of battery down. In the last 5 years, battery costs came down 50%. In the next 3 years, it's going to drop another 50%. So to put things in perspective, for the car, electric car, the cost of battery today is about 200 US per kilowatt hour. It's going to drop to about 100 kilowatt hour. It's going to bring electric cars onto our roads very, very fast. So today, if you look at it, electric vehicles are just less than 1% of overall car sales. Think about the horse carriages story I told you earlier. It's going to happen very quickly, right? And for those guys who say electric vehicles, nah. Self-driving cars, impossible. It is just going to happen so quickly. And for those who are not familiar, Nissan launched Nissan Serena MPV last summer in Japan. And that MPV has an autopilot feature on highway only. So when the car goes on highway only, thanks to 3D mapping, lane recognition or lane marking recognition systems, LiDAR systems. LiDAR is a kind of a 360 thing, which actually has a radar around your car. So anything from a child crossing, a bicycle dashing by, or a truck, or anything, the LiDAR would be able to kind of capture that. But anyway, that car actually can drive on the highway by itself. It's a self-driving feature, but when it comes into the city, the driver takes over. Okay, but it's just a beginning of it. But to think that in Japan it can happen, and Japan, the Japanese are very, very conscious about safety and regulations and all that, self-driving cars are just starting to happen, right? But imagine what it means for us, right? If you have a car like this, you can probably drive from here to Penang quite effortlessly, right? Just go on the north-south highway. But I want to also stretch your imagination to think about just not electric cars, but what will happen when cars get more connected, when cars become self-driving, right? I used to watch Knight Rider when I was a little boy, and I used to be so fascinated. But I think the days of Knight Rider is really happening already, right? So imagine your smartphone can talk to your car, or when you go to a restaurant, most of the time you're so frustrated. We go to the restaurant on time, but we can't find parking, right? Imagine your car can park by itself, right? Or after your dinner, you call, okay, kid, I'm done, or whatever name you want to call your car, right? Yeah, and the car comes and picks you up. But this is really happening, and this is going to happen, and there's so much of investment opportunities behind this. Let's change tack a bit, okay? So we talk so much about consumer and all that, but let's think about what's really happening in the business world or in the manufacturing. Now, manufacturing has gone through many, many stages. I used to visit Chinese factories 15 to 20 years ago in Guangdong and Guangzhou and Dongguan. And when I go to the Adidas factory or a Reebok factory, and you can see tens and thousands of young Chinese putting things together, sewing different parts of the shoes, Levi's jeans, and everything else. But those things are over, right? Who says China has cheap labor? China doesn't have cheap labor anymore. China's labor force peaked in the year 2010 already. And China's labor cost is going up 10% every year for the last 10 years. So China is no longer cheap, right? That's point number one. But point number two is there's a lot of robots and automation and factories which are coming up, and this manufacturing evolution is happening very quickly than we think, okay? And also thanks to e-commerce and logistics. Alibaba has a logistics affiliate called Cainiao, and Cainiao handles 30 million parcels a day. Can you imagine handling 30 million parcels a day on Alibaba's platform? It's mind-boggling, and it cannot be done by humans. So what they do is they engage robots, automation, intelligent systems, a bit of IoT to get these things done. But it's not just that, right? It's still evolving. Amazon Prime Air tried to do click to deliver in 30 minutes in the UK. So what basically happens is they have drones coming into Amazon fulfillment centers, and then they get a parcel, and it then goes and delivers. The drones are self-driving. The drones has chips, which has got GPS. It knows where the address is. It drops the parcel. It comes back to home, which is the fulfillment center. So it's just not robots we're talking about. We're not talking about robots with hands. We're talking about robots like shelves, moving shelves. We're talking about drones, which also can be used in automation, and a whole lot of things happening, right? But let me also just try to change the direction a bit. Like we talked about how the millennials want customized products. People don't want to wear the same Adidas shoes. I don't want to wear the same Adidas shoe as you, right? So people are now customizing their shoes. So you can go to Adidas website and customize your Adidas shoe, or even your shirt, or whatever. The millennials don't want to wear things that other people are wearing. Everything has to be customized. So what it means is the manufacturing is now going back home, which means if you click something and you buy a Lululemon or a Nike or a Adidas, you expect the delivery to come maybe in the next 1 week or 2 weeks. Those are the days where you make it in a Chinese factory or a Vietnamese factory. It takes maybe 5, 6, 7 days to make it, and you ship it for 4 to 5 weeks across the seas into the US. It takes almost 2 to 3 months to move manufacturing goods from China to the US. Those days are over. So we don't really need Donald Trump to come and disrupt manufacturing or to put trade protectionism or anything like that. The automation, the fashion cycles are faster. When I used to be a young analyst, I used to go and visit factories. The fashion cycle was only 4, right? The winter, the summer, and the autumn, and that. Today, the fashion cycle is maybe 8 to 10 fashion cycles or even more. And the fashion cycles are just turning so fast. The batches are smaller, right? And on top of that, you've got customization, which means that manufacturing has to be done closer to home. And we already start to hear stories of Adidas opening up factories in Germany, right? And some of the manufacturing going back home. But let me just also stretch your imagination when the 3D printing takes off, right? For those who don't know 3D printing, you can go and Google. But basically what 3D printing means that it's going to change the way manufacturing is done, right? The mass 3D printing, when it takes off, I don't know when it's going to take off, maybe in the next 5 years, you can print a lot of things at home, right? So think about the manufacturing moving from Vietnam to China, to the US, maybe Mexico border. I don't know whether Trump allows that, but it's going back into your home. So your phone cases, for example, the plastic cover or whatever you have it, that can be printed at home. My glasses, the frame can be printed at home. Your slippers can be printed at home. Your kid's bicycle helmet can be printed at home. So a lot of things can be printed at home, right? So which basically means manufacturing is coming into your house. And there's so much of investment opportunities in that space. Now, what I described to you is various bits and pieces of where disruption is happening. I mean, I don't have, these guys only gave me like half an hour, right? But there's so many things we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about genome research. We haven't talked about DNA sequencing. In the future, your GPs will have a DNA machine in the clinic, right? A cough is just not a cough. A cold is not a cold. What's behind that? But most of the time, they give you antibiotics and some flu medicine and say, go home and you'll be better. And you'll be better. But the virus or the DNA could have changed. And you don't know, maybe after 5, 10 years later, then the cold had something to do with something in 10 years' time, right? So there's a whole lot of genetic engineering going on, DNA sequencing, which we haven't talked about. There's smart grids happening. There is augmented reality. We just saw the first version of Pokemon Go, but it haven't started yet, right? And the VR that you see in Samsung shops, it is just a version 1.0. It really haven't taken off yet. But what we thought of doing at Lion Global Investors was that how do we then participate in this, right? The reality is, if you got $20 million or $50 million, you would have been invited for Lazada or RedMart.com second round funding or third round funding. The thing is, we are all middle class, and nobody's going to invite us for that with our $100,000 or $50,000, right? So there's really no way we can participate in the PE or the private equity or the venture capitalists or the guys who are setting up new apps out there. The closest thing we can come to is to then form a basket of stocks globally for people like us to kind of partake in the investment opportunities that disruption presents. Look at this. This is Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Tencent. But this is what share prices do because these are very high growth companies. They were expensive 3 years ago. They're still expensive. They're growing very fast, 20%, 30%. But our point is also that disruption is just not about Facebook, Amazon, Google, or Tencent. There's a whole lot of things. Tesla, Expedia, Trivago got listed just a month ago. You got Xiaosan Robots in China. You got Yasakawa Electric in Japan. You got a whole lot of things happening everywhere in every part, right? So what we have done is we've gone through an exercise in Lion Global trying to put things together in a smarter way. So we call it a smart beta. But the smart beta is a very cheap word, right? So but basically, just think of it as a global disruptor index or a global disruptor ETF. There's no ETFs out there, there's no index out there, there's no funds out there. So we thought we should create something for all of us to kind of participate. So what we do is we then identify the hardware, the software, the breakthroughs that we showed you earlier in the 3 boxes. And then we have so far gathered about 500 stocks, and then we use a factor-based investing to then invest it. So this is how our universe looks like, and it is not exhaustive. We haven't talked about blockchain yet. I think somebody talked about the bonds earlier, about the exchanges. Yeah, in the future, a lot of these settlement jobs and reconciliation jobs, trade matching jobs, are probably going to get disrupted, right? Today, when you buy a stock, it's a T+2 settlement. But my point is, why should you have T+2? Why can't you do it in the next 10 minutes? But blockchain will allow that to happen. So blockchain is just starting to happen. Fintech is just starting to happen. We haven't seen Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, those kind of things taking off in a very big way. It's just starting. And in the future, supermarkets won't have cashiers. I'm not sure whether you've seen the Amazon Go, where you walk into the supermarket, the NFC in your phone is communicating with that entrance. And once you go, you just take your milk, you take your yogurt, your whatever, put into your bag, and you just walk out. And that's it. The NFC already talks to the 3 items, and it registers in the cloud, and you already paid for it with your Apple Pay. So you don't even need to take out your phone and flash, or your Uncle Sim probably doesn't need to do that anymore. Maybe he has to do another advertisement where he has to go in, walk, with the phone in the pocket. Yeah, but that's where payments are going to be. You probably don't need cashiers anymore, right? Yeah, but this is a whole load of things that we are talking about, robotics, shale gas, gaming, fintech, e-wallets, and the list just continues growing. So we put together about 500 stocks, but we can't really form a portfolio with 500. It's not cost efficient for us to do that. So what we have done is we've used fundamental factor investing, right? So I'm not sure how many of you are very familiar with this. Actually, a lot of people in my industry are also not that familiar with this. But basically, the point is the fund manager is not going to pick Facebook or pick Amazon or pick Tencent or Alibaba or Baidu or anything like that. We let the factors do the job, right? So we have used market cap. I think most people understand what market cap is. Market cap is the size of the company, right? We only want big companies. We don't want the small companies. Big is beautiful. Big becomes bigger, right? Facebook was big 5 years ago, and Facebook is bigger today, right? And same for Alibaba. And for those who are not very familiar, I think Jack Ma said he wants to be the 3rd biggest economy in the world. What does economy in the world means? How can a company be an economy, right? The 3rd biggest economy is about $8 trillion worth of GDP. He wants to be an $8 trillion company. It's scary, right? So a company is now becoming as big as an economy, right? And that's what he wants to do. But anyway, the thing is, market cap means big companies. So we only want big companies. And then we use growth. I mean, what's the point of investing in disruption technology or disruption innovation when there's no growth, right? So we use EPS growth, earnings per share, and we use sales growth, right? And we said, yeah, the story is good, self-driving, space, tourism, whatever, but show me the money, right? If you can't show me growth, then it means that you're not ready yet, correct? Yeah, so that's what we do. So these are all automated. And then we use price volatility. We understand that some of these disruptors could be volatile, but our research shows that Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple, the volatility is not that high at all as compared to MSCI World. In fact, they behave quite steadily because these are disruptors. These are proven concepts, and they're actually just chipping away the incumbent, growing very steadily, 20%, 30% every year. And then lastly, we have price to sales, which is just a valuation sanity check. So we just use these 5 factors, and we rebalance every quarter, right? The point I'm trying to say is the fund manager is getting disrupted here. There's no fund manager here, right? Of course, it's a team. There's a team of very smart people behind this idea, right? And we are done our statistical checks and our back testing and all that. But the point is there's no emotions. The problem with the fund managers is we are so emotional. There's greed, there is fear. Sometimes you kekiang and do things, right? Sometimes you're just panicking, things like that. So this is just to give those who are really interested in wanting to know how this really works. But what we do is we just rank it, right? Our 500 stocks that we have in our investment universe, they're all over the country, they're all over the world, from China to the US to even Brazil and Russia and Europe. We just rank it and we give them scores. So volatility scores, market cap scores, price to sales, earnings growth, sales growth. We just give them scores, and then we rank them by scores, and we just take the top 100. And every quarter we do that, right? And so that we can catch any changes in sales growth or earnings growth. Yeah. And it's just like that. So we don't want to make finance complicated. We don't want to make the fund look too cheap or very difficult to understand. This is so easy to understand. It is just common sense and a bit of investment experience. Now, this is the team behind it. Gerard is our CEO and CIO. He used to work for GIC, ex-Deutsche Asset Management, ex-Fullerton Fund Management. Myself, I was with Nomura. I was in Deutsche Asset Management before this. So there's a whole lot of guys who are so smart and trying to put things together, and this is the team behind it. These are the fund product features. You can probably go to Fund Supermart website to have a look. But the last message we want to leave you with is, for the first time, we want to create a fund for the mass market, for the people like you and me. And so we take out that $1,000 minimum investment bullshit, and we said, anybody can invest. That sounds like Uncle Sim, right? Anybody can invest. So easy, right? Yeah. But basically, we want to put this in every JC kid out there, every starting to work it out, any uncles, aunties, anybody who just wants to try it or who wants to have a feel of it, or for people who have never invested in a mutual fund before. Maybe this is your first shot. $100 is just your sushi meal or your Nike shoes, right? But we want to make it so accessible to the people out there that, and it's a kind of and we kept it as a very low cost. So it's coming at 1% per annum, and I think during the IOP period, there's some discounts happening. Yeah. But the 100 global disruptors, $100 initial investment, and it's coming at 1% per annum. So I should stop here, and I should show you the disclaimer, because basically they say that you need to go and seek advice from your financial advisor, blah, 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 and all that, right? Yeah. But we are here to answer some questions. Outside, we have a booth. You guys can come and seek us out. Thanks for listening.